So to understand why chord scale pairings are so important, let's first look at the traditional map of tonal harmony in the key of C major. If we look at the 1 chord, we can see that there are many different chord scale pairings that we can use. The default pair is C major 7 with the Ionian scale, and that is because we're in the jazz standard map. The 2's default pair is a minor 7 chord paired with the Dorian scale, and the 5 is a dominant 7th chord paired with the Mixolydian. But if I change to pop and rock, the 1 is now a C major triad paired also with the Ionian scale. So, what does all this mean to me as a composer or a soloist? Well, when you look at harmonic functions using this approach, you can assign a specific color to every note, all 12 tones in music, based on the chord scale of the current harmonic function. For example, if the 1 is a major 7th paired with the Ionian scale, then I can classify every note like this. C, E, G, and B are chord tones. D, F, and A are tensions. And all of the rest of the notes are outside notes. I could even classify the chord tones further into C as the root and E and B as guide tones, D and A as available tensions, and F as an avoid tension. We have a whole video dedicated to this approach, so if you want to learn more about it, click on the iCard right here. Now that I have my notes classified, I can use this to write consistent melodies, treating the notes based on their color or dissonance. This is essential when we are writing melodies. Let me explain. So let's first write out our C scale to create our graph. All right, C. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this other staff down here not like a staff, but I'm going to use it to create the graph. So just ignore what you know these lines and spaces to normally be, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So we're going to use each line as varying degrees of either tension or release. I will put the root down here as the least amount of tension. And then we're going to go to our guide tones right there. Right above that, we're going to put the 5th. The 5th is going to get its very own sort of category. Some tension, not a lot, even though it is a chord tone. And then we're going to have right here even more tensions, extensions, chord extensions, like 9s, 11s, 13s, and so on. Up here, I want to put the avoid tensions. So now let's create our graph by assigning the notes in our scale to these varying levels of tension that we're using these lines down here to represent. So my C, that's my root. That guy is down there. Let's find our guide tones now and put that on the second line of our tension leveler. Here is our E, and where's my B? I have a couple instances of B. I put it over here as well. And now we'll find our 5th, which is G, put that on the next line higher. So now we're adding more and more tension, or more and more of the tension notes to our graph. Tensions D, where is that? Here, and A. What about F, you say? Well, F is an avoid tension. So I'm going to put that on the top line. And well, there's our C again. Let me get the C at the end as well. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll connect these points, and this will create our graph. Not only will it create our graph, you'll see the tendency that each note has and where it wants to go relative to where it is in the graph. So I just go down here, and then up there, and then down again, and then up, and whoop, whoop. So now what we can do by doing this, we can see not only the amount of tension each note has within the scale, but also like what its tendency is. If you could imagine like a ball rolling up and down this hill. In other words, if I am on, I don't know, let's pick this note here. If I am on F, its tendency is going to want to roll down and settle either on G or maybe even more so E, because that's a steeper incline to get down to that E. So if I'm playing this chord here, C major 7 and I play this avoid tension, it's either going to want to go up to that G and settle there, or it's going to want to roll down to the E. And you can hear the release of that avoid tension when I go to either note. So this is C Ionian graphed and paired with a C major 7 chord. What happens if we pair it with just a regular C triad? A couple things will change. Well, one thing will change. We're going to treat this B a little differently, a lot differently, really. I'm going to get rid of this B here and here. We have it in two places. Because on top of this chord, just the triad, this B serves a different purpose. So in other words, if I'm playing like a typical like rock chord progression and I'm just using triads, that B now has tension in it, kind of wants to be somewhere else. So if we represent that in our graph, that would look like this. This guy's going to be way up here now. Now my graph has taken on a different shape. It's classified now in the same sort of tension category as A was for the other scale. You know, that B wants to go somewhere else. This is important. Why? Because you just saw how we took the same exact scale and applying it to two different chords means I reinterpret the meaning or the point of B. Like in the context of the C major 7, that same exact B in the same exact scale serves a completely different function or purpose, has different meaning. But when I do it on top of a C major triad, it wants to go somewhere else, wants to go to C. So knowing this is going to seriously and considerably inform how you write, how you improvise, how you arrange. And you need to see the chord scale pairings to understand this. Let's graph out some other chord and chord scale pairings and see what they look like. Here's D minor 7 paired with Dorian. Here's G7 paired with Mixolydian. And here's G7 sus4 paired with Mixolydian. So here we have written out C double harmonic major paired with the C chord and F Hungarian minor paired with the F minor triad. Now these are both the same exact note grouping, but as you can see, depending on which graph you're looking at, each note will function slightly differently depending on what chord you're playing it on top of. So we're going to draw your attention to this little area right here as it relates to the C double harmonic major. This area where A flat, G, and F exist. And we're just going to going back to that analogy of imagining a ball being on this hill. Where is that ball going to want to settle, and where is the inertia going to take it? In other words, if I'm playing those three notes, it's going to want to settle on G. G is kind of a point of release. It's not a very tense note. It's the fifth. It's not an avoid tension or a tension at all. It's a nice place for me to resolve that idea. But if I look at the same exact three notes as it relates to F Hungarian minor, the A flat, the G, and the F have very different purposes. They all have a very different meaning on top of this chord. The G is no longer a point of release. It's a point of tension, and that wants to go to this F. And just like we did before with C major 7 and the C triad, every time we change the chord scale pairing, even if slightly, we change the shape of our graph and therefore the function of each note within the scale. So in other words, let me draw your attention to this like G, F, E little valley in our graph. So if I'm playing that on top of an F minor, the ball wants to settle on F. However, if we change F minor to F minor major 7, because E is now a guide tone. This minimizes the amount of tension it has, and therefore its purpose within the scale. So I would have to kind of move that down significantly to this little area right here and here. And now the contour, our shape, is different. That there, and that there. A little sloppy, but you get the point. So let me show you what that would sound like. So on top of F minor, don't want to be here. The ball wants to settle elsewhere. But if I play an F minor major 7, it's a really nice like settling point. It's almost a point, well, it is a point of release now. So this is really important, this idea of a chord scale pairing and what it does to inform the contour of your shape and how you treat the notes. Okay, so we've got all of the upper structures from season 1 broken down here on these 3 bags. So basically each one of these pieces of paper represents an